Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Hope y'all are having a great day. Now today we're getting started on this 2007 Cadillac CTS. We're going to be doing timing chains. That's right, we're going to be doing a timing chain replacement on this CTS. Now if you remember in my last video, I'll put a link to it down in the description below, we had trouble codes P0008 and P0017. Those are timing codes, and I tried to replace, or we did replace, the cam position sensor in hopes that that would solve the problem. You know, after that did not fix the problem. I actually took the car to a local shop and they diagnosed the timing chains were the issue. And the local shop wanted, I think it was north of 3,000 bucks, 3,300 bucks, something like that, to replace the timing chains on this car. So we decided to go ahead and dive into it ourselves. I went ahead and bought the timing chain kit. Got, who remembers what this thing is? If you guys remember what this is, let me know down in the comment section below. Got some gaskets, lots of gaskets, a couple extra tools here. These are the camshaft holding tools. And then also I got, see what's in here. This is going to be our flywheel holding tool for when we reinstall the harmonic balancer. This thing, you have to remove the starter motor, and then this thing goes right into the starter motor outlet at the back of the motor and holds the flywheel so you can actually torque down the harmonic balancer. So before we get started on this, I just have to go pick up a few things, and then we'll be right back and we'll start diving into this. So be sure to stick around. I'm going to try to do my best to make this an informative video but easy to follow video. I've got the shop manual already printed out, so I've got all of the recommended steps to get these timing chains taken off and replaced, and I'll let you guys know as we go along what I run into, what problems I have, and how I solve those problems. So guys, stick around, be sure to watch to the end of the video. Like I said, I'm going to try and make this informative and easy to follow. If you have any questions about these timing chain replacements, be sure to leave them down in the comment section below. And if you guys are new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. Please consider hitting that subscribe button. I've got a lot of other car care and DIY repair videos on the channel that you might find useful. So with that, let's go pick up a couple extra parts and we'll get started on the car. Alright, to get started, I just wanted to read over the shop list of how-tos on how to get these timing covers off. So according to the book here, shop manual, it is 19 easy steps to follow. So we've already got the engine cover removed. We're going to remove the upper intake manifold with the lower intake manifold, remove the camshaft covers, drain the engine coolant, disconnect the purge vent hose, remove the water outlet from the radiator, remove the accessory drive belts, remove the AC compressor and power steering belt tensioners, not the units themselves, remove the alternator bracket with the alternator and belt tensioner, remove the power steering fluid reservoir, and reposition the power steering pump, which is over here. So we're not going to have to take that thing completely off. You just loosen it and move it out of the way. Then you're going to remove the power steering pump pulley, which is one of the pullers I went to Advanced Auto Parts to get. Then you're going to remove the power steering pump upper bolt and loosen the remaining two bolts, move it out of the way. On to step number 13 here, remove the harmonic balancer. And you want to remove the oil control valves, remove engine front cover, which is this guy here, disassemble the front cover as necessary, which is removing all the seals and O-rings, and I'll show you how to do that. When we get to it, you're going to inspect the front cover sealing surfaces, and with that I imagine we're going to have to take a razor blade or something like that and clean off all of the old RTV before we put new on. And then carefully clean the engine front cover sealing surfaces. Again, same process there, and depending on how dirty it is, it may take a brass wire wheel to clean that up, but we'll start with a razor blade to get all that old gasket material off. And then use compressed air to remove any engine coolant from the engine cooling passages, and then installation, basically the opposite. So there are a couple specialty tools that you'll need, and I'll go through those as we put them on and as we use them. But for now, let's go ahead and get started with step number 1. Now, I don't know how long this video is going to be, so I may end up breaking it up into 2 segments. But be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, so if I do have these videos broken up into 2 pieces, you'll get notified when the next video comes out. And also be sure to check down in the description below, and I'll have links to each of the videos down in the description. So let's get started. Alright, so first casualty, guys, be careful when you're taking off this electrical connector. It has some, at least in our case, it had a pretty brittle retaining clip that held it in, and we actually ended up breaking that piece. So just be careful when you're taking that little electrical connector off. So we got the air box removed. That was just a hose clamp on the intake, and then just a few probably 10mm bolts holding it to the actual frame of the car, or the body of the car. Alright, then once you get your air box removed, take note of the brake booster housing, or the brake booster hose routing. Then you want to disconnect the brake booster check valve and hose from the brake booster, which is back here. So instead of doing that, we just went ahead and removed the brake booster hose from the intake manifold. And then what you want to do is disconnect the purge solenoid valve electrical connector, which is back here on this side of the car, on the passenger side. You want to disconnect that line from the purge solenoid, and then disconnect the fuel injector harness electrical connector, and then disconnect the throttle body electrical connector, and then remove the wiring harness retainer, which is up front here, and then remove the upper intake manifold bolts and studs. There's also a couple braces here that you want to remove as well. And then remove the wiring harness retainer, which is up here on the front. Disconnect the PCV hose from the right bank crank cover. Disconnect the barometric pressure sensor electrical connector. That's a mouthful. I think that is over here on this side of the car. And then disconnect the intake manifold runner control solenoid electrical connector. Goodness gracious, which is up here. And then you can remove your ignition coil harness, and then remove the intake bolts from the intake. Alright, I've got all of the bolts removed from the intake manifold. The other steps that we had to take this retaining clip off of the throttle body, which while we have this off, I'm going to clean that throttle body. It's pretty dirty in there. And then there are several brackets around the intake manifold that you'll just need to undo. These are all 10mm bolts here. And then there is one more electrical connector way at the very back, back by the firewall, that when we take the intake manifold off, that we'll just have to take that electrical connector off, you know, just make it a little bit easier when we pull the intake manifold off. So I can already tell back towards the rear, and I'll show you when we get this intake off, but I can already tell we have an issue, we're going to go ahead and take this windshield wiper shroud off, and I'll show you why in just a second. Let me go ahead and get you guys in here for a closer look. So the issue is, when we were pulling that intake manifold off, that bolt was hung up in the hole, and it bent the gasket here. So it's going to be important that, you know, we get this in and get it in properly. So we're going to take this shroud off when we reinstall this guy. Alright guys, let me bring it back in here and show you the progress we've made. So the most recent thing we just finished doing was removing that lower radiator hose, and now all the antifreeze is draining out. But we've gone ahead and removed the power steering reservoir. Just set this off to the side. I've taken the serpentine belts off, removed the tensioner brackets on both sides, and we've got the wiring harness taken off up top for the most part. Went ahead and took the bracket off that was holding these two main electrical connectors. Got that out of the way. Let's see, really the most difficult thing so far right now has been that lower radiator hose. I tried reaching it you know, on the driver's side, but I guess when they put it on at the factory, they put the clamp facing outward, so there was just no way to get a hose clamp or channel locks around it. So we ended up taking the hose clamp, taking the lower radiator hose off of the passenger side, let that drain. So now the next step, we've got to run up to the parts store. I've got to get a fuel line disconnect tool to remove that fuel line, and then we'll start tackling this lower manifold and then also the valve covers. Alright, so we're at the point now we're ready to take off this lower intake manifold. Now I was looking back at the book, and the book says not to take off or not to separate the upper and the lower intake manifolds. However, you know, it's a little deceiving because in the book it shows 6 bolts, and then when you remove the engine cover shield, you know, to reveal the upper intake manifold, so you have these 4 main bolts here, and then you have this one at the front and then this one at the rear. So when I was first looking at the manual, I thought those were the 6 bolts that you remove. However, once we got off the upper intake manifold, if you look down here at the front, this is where the 5th bolt, I guess, would be, and then I know you can't really see that, but back here is where the 6th bolt would be. So that is, and you know, you have to remove the fuel line back here, and to do that, you know, simply I just use one of these fuel line disconnect tools. Actually, it's the blue one, which is the 3/8 inch disconnect tool to remove that. And you cannot actually, or it's very difficult to get to this fuel line here with that upper intake manifold on. So even though the manual says not to disconnect, not to remove that upper intake manifold from the lower piece, you know, I felt like it was kind of necessary simply just to get to that fuel line. So we're going to go ahead. I've got both of these bolts out now that hold the lower intake manifold to the engine, and we're ready now to pull that off of the block. And I don't know if you saw that, but I spilt just a little bit of gas. There was still a little bit left here in the line when I pulled it out, so you just want to rotate it kind of towards the driver's side as you're pulling that out. So that's it. And then one other note here, when you're removing the fuel line, before you remove it, just take off this cap here and then just depress that Schrader valve a little bit to release any pressure that's still in the lines before you pull that line off. Alright guys, so now that we've got that lower intake manifold off, I'm just going to go ahead and start removing all these 10mm bolts that hold the driver's side valve cover, get that taken off, and then we'll do the passenger side valve cover.
One more.
Couple more.
Ain't that one.
Nope. Alright, so that was the driver's side, and we're just going to follow that same procedure all the way around, taking the bolts off of the passenger side and then get that one up. I'll come back after we get that one taken off, show you what that one looks like. Alright, now we're ready to take the passenger side off. Got all of the bolts off, and I'm just going to pry the valve cover away from the engine just to break the seal on the gasket. electrical connector here. Let me get you guys in close here because I'm seeing something that's kind of interesting. So on the driver's side, you notice all of the internals are pretty clean. You know, then you move over to the passenger side and it has got, you know, what appears to be, what looks like burnt oil. You know, so there is the difference between the driver's side and the passenger side. Now I have seen several videos on this, and one theory as to why this happens is the passenger side has very poor crankcase ventilation. And let me see if I can show you guys where the actual ventilation happens. So again, here is the passenger side valve cover, and just to the right, just to the left of that bolt hole are two very tiny holes. I don't know how well you can see that. Two very tiny holes that the crankshaft or the crankcase ventilates to. You know, and here's the breather right there that comes out. So, you know, I have seen and heard other people theorize that the reason why these passenger side timing chains, or you get the trouble codes for the timing, the 0008 and 0017 occur, is because you have poor crankcase ventilation on the passenger side. And I don't know all the science behind it, but I guess the oil heats up a lot hotter, it doesn't ventilate properly, more heat, more friction, more wear, you know, and thus the timing chain on the passenger side wears out quicker, stretches, and that's what gives you those engine trouble codes. So now that we've got both valve covers off, we're going to go ahead and tackle the rest of the components on the front side of the motor so that we can get to the front engine cover. Alright folks, I just wanted to come back and let you guys know the trouble that we had removing this alternator bracket. Now in the book it says to remove two lower engine mounting bolts in order to get the alternator off, such that you can then remove this alternator bracket. Alright, so on the diagram here, once you get that taken off, it shows you have to remove these three bolts on the front side of this bracket here, 1, 2, 3, and then it also says on the back, on the passenger side, there's a fourth bolt. Okay, what the diagram does not show you is there is a fifth bolt right down here. It's a 13mm bolt, which is, if you're looking at the car from the passenger side, so these two holes here and then the one up top here, these three are for your alternator. One here, this is to hold the bracket on. And then again, 2, 3, 4, these all hold the bracket on. And again, what the diagram does not show is you have another 13mm bolt here that is actually just holding a clamp that, to make more sense, let me get you down closer. It's a clamp that holds the lower radiator hose hard line. Let's see here, let me get you down here. So down here, so again, here's your hard line for your coolant alternator, of course. And then this little guy right back here, this little bracket that's, or clamp I guess, that's holding this hard line on, was also connected to the bracket. And again, the book does not describe to you that you need to remove this, but it's very helpful. The hard line, you can, it's got a little bit of play in it, so you're able to move it a little bit to get this bracket out. Now also, the book also tells you to remove those 2 lower engine mounting bolts so that you can raise up the motor to pull the alternator out. Well, we're not pulling the alternator, we just wanted to get it out of the way so that we can get to all of the bolts on the front cover. So I think, that step we did not take, prevented us or made it a little bit more difficult for us to remove this bracket. But anyway, just wanted to show you that. Again, don't forget to take out this other bolt here that is holding that cable, or that's holding the bracket for the hard line for your coolant. Alright, now what I'm doing is just pulling off the power steering pump pulley, and let me go ahead and get this guy off the rest of the way, and then I'll show you the setup that I've got. And this is just a pulley that I rented from Advanced Auto Parts, and you can probably rent these from just about any car parts store. Advanced, CarQuest, O'Reilly's, AutoZone. This makes it very easy to take this pulley off. There it is. Alright, so the puller that I'm using, let me get the box for you real quick. Alright, so the kit that I'm using here is from Advanced Auto. It's the Power Built kit number 20. Just the power steering and alternator pulley puller. Alright, so now that we've got the power steering pump pulley removed, now it's time to take off, sorry about that. Now it's time to take off the harmonic balancer. Now I tried to get my socket fitted on there, which is a 19mm by the way, but the electric cooling fans were in the way. I couldn't get my impact wrench on the socket, or on the bolt, all the way. So we ended up taking off the cooling fans, which was, pretty straightforward. You've got 3 bolts across the top here, and then there was like 1 clip holding the air conditioner line on, and then there was a couple other little plastic clips, around that shroud that holds, a couple wire looms on. I think we ended up breaking 1, but it was able to pry off the other 2. So we're ready to remove the harmonic balancer, and let me show you that process right now. So that actually came off a lot easier than I was anticipating, and with the impact gun here, it really helps make that process go a lot quicker. Step after you get the bolt out of the harmonic balancer is you want to attach the pulley, and then we're just going to pull that harmonic balancer right off the front of the motor. I just want to show you real quick here. This is kit number 138 from Advanced Auto. There it is. Not too bad. Not too bad. Alright, now that I got the harmonic balancer off, you want to take off this front cover deadener, and it's just held on by 5 bolts. You got 2 on the top and then 3 on the bottom.
It's a sound deadener, alright.
Yeah, and that's what that stuff looks like there. So the power steering pump, I think we need to loosen that, just slide that out of the way, and then that should be all we need to do, and then we can just go ahead and start removing all the bolts around the front cover so we can take that thing off. Alright folks, so I think this is probably going to be the last segment of the day. It is getting close to quitting time, but kind of for the grand finale of part 1 here, we're going to get this front cover off. And let me show you what the book describes you need to do to get this front cover off. Obviously you got to get all of the accessories off, the harmonic balancer, etc. But there are, there are 4 pry points, and then also 1 jacking point right to the top left, probably about 11 o'clock on the water pump, or from the water pump. And I'll get you in close to show you that one. So I've already got a bolt installed here, and what you want to do is just, this is a 10 by, I don't want to tell you wrong here, This is a 10 by 1.5 bolt that I believe came from the alternator. Don't quote me on that, but we did get this bolt off of something we had pulled off the car already. So I went ahead and threaded... What's that, Big Wing?
Power steering.
Power steering. So this bolt came off of the power steering, the top of the power steering. So I've got that one in there, and then I've already pried around a couple of the pry points down below. And I just wanted to go ahead and start cracking this thing open for you. Let's see. You can see right there it's starting to come apart. Yep. And we've got some drainage down at the bottom, so you know it's starting to loosen up. Get that drain pan under there a little bit better. So this guy should just slide right on out. And there she comes. There. Alright. So there it is, guys. There is your front cover taken off. Now, there are procedures in the book here for cleaning this up. Obviously, you want to clean up the gasket surfaces, and I'll probably do that here before the end of the evening. And then there are, and we'll go over all this stuff on part 2. You know, replacing these gaskets and then creating the new gasket with RTV. Obviously, got to get all this old stuff off. Cleaning it up, there are O-rings that go on these solenoids here. We'll get those replaced, and then what we came to do is replace these timing chains. So let me get you guys in here close. Let's just take one look at these timing chains before I end the video for today. Now, I do not have, or at least I don't believe these timing, no, there's a timing mark right there. So this this chain and this motor is not at top dead center right now. We'll have to get that turned over to get the timing marks aligned properly before we start taking everything off. But you know, as you can see here, you've got 1, 2, and 3 timing chains on this thing. So there are actually 2 timing set points when you set the timing on these chains, or when you put the chains on, and we'll go over all that in part 2 of this video. Let's see here. So just for comparison here, you can take a look at this tensioner guide right here and see how far pushed out that is. You know, so that tells me that this chain certainly has stretched. And then compare that to this tensioner over here, and hopefully you can see that pretty well on the camera, but that is only about, let's say, a finger's width, and then this one is probably about, I don't know, a finger and a half, maybe a finger and a third width. There is another one down here at the bottom. I don't know how well you can see that. That one is also about a finger width out. So, you know, guys, I think we have found the problem. You know, it's going to be that left side, I'm sorry, the passenger side timing chain. It appears it is stretched. So we'll get that put out, taken off, get all the new stuff put back on. And I may do a separate video just on the parts that I bought for this video and show you all what comes in that Cloyes kit. And then, you know, tomorrow, or I guess whenever I have the next video uploaded, you know, we'll go ahead and take off the timing chains and then get the new ones put back on. I'll show you guys how to set the timing on the new timing chains, and then we'll get everything buttoned back up. So today, I don't know what time it is. It's about 4:45. You know, we started about 9:30 this morning. Took a little break for lunch, so that just gives you an idea of how long it's taken to do, or to get to this point. Of course, we were filming during the process, so we weren't, you know, in a shop on a lift. You know, kind of taking our time because this is my first time doing it. But so for a full day's work, we've got to the timing chains. I don't think we really wasted much time. I think we were pretty productive. So I hope this part 1 video has been helpful to you guys. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you get notified when part 2 of this video comes out. And also, if this is your first time watching this video, be sure to check down in the description below, because as soon as I upload part 2 of the video of the timing chain replacement series, I'll put a link to that video down in the description below as well. So guys, I hope this part 1 has been helpful to you. If it has, be sure to leave a thumbs up, leave a like. If you got any questions, be sure to leave a comment down in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. So thanks for checking out the video. Again, I hope it's been helpful to you. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you on the next one.